If you're no stranger to the current economic climate, especially regarding fiscal policy, you know that bougie brazen billionaires are bumbling along in their beautiful and buoyant yachts, as better humbled beings are betrayed as the bounty of their long and hard-earned money is being siphoned away from them via firings, demotions, layoffs, benefit cuts, and increasingly worsening conditions as the thieves of surplus value continue to enjoy their opulent lifestyles while paying grifters to spout their main talking points, which include but aren't limited to work harder, don't be dependent, bootstraps, the rich already pay most of the taxes, which is untrue. What matters is what Hunter has on his laptop instead of the fact that Congress gets paid to authorize genocide, the list goes on. These obsequious and docile dogma-ridden devils will do everything in their power to go against objective good in the face of all demonstrable evidence, leading us to conclude the contrary. To put things more succinctly, if you don't think the rich should be taxed more,
we all saw. You can laugh nervously as much as you want because you're being exposed in 4K for being a brainless dipshit.
I've seen your penis
but
in real life. I've
we've
seen your penis on a picture of it. It's tiny.
Literally.
I'm saying you're the epitome of evil. So today, we're gonna be debunking two of the most idiotic billionaire defenders out there and see why all of their arguments fall flat and why they have yet to make valid points because they haven't throughout the course of the entirety of their careers. Exhibit A. Wurzelroot. This guy is one of Fuentes' Groyper generals, and from what I know, especially taking his history into consideration, Fuentes hates capitalism and thinks a certain demographic of people are pulling the strings behind the scenes. Anyway, for a long time, Fuentes and these dissident right-wingers have adopted more populist fiscal policies, because I guess you can't be wrong 100% of the time. So let's see how this contradictory screed of lies holds up against reality.
Maybe I'm being a big dum-dum right now, maybe I'm just stupid.
You are.
But I really cannot for the life of me understand tax the rich.
Because you're extremely stupid.
But the average person who supports tax the rich seems to believe that the entire movement is about, breaking into Elon Musk's house and stealing his money. So let's say we do it. America seizes 50% of the net worth of every single billionaire, all 550 living in America. Now, most of their money isn't sitting in a bank somewhere or in a Scrooge McDuck pile of money. Most of it is in investment opportunities or stocks in their own corporation or many others. So we will, in essence, be stealing this money from many different businesses and other organizations around America.
Well, thanks for letting me know the dissident right will immediately betray any principle they have so long as it's contrarian to the left's narrative. I'm going to assume that you're making the taxation is theft argument, so typically my response to that is commerce is theft. Every argument you could make in favor of taxation being theft could be transposed on the private entities. Would you consider it theft when a corporation revokes someone's health insurance benefits? Is it theft when private equity dissolves a business they just bought just to collect the insurance money? Is it coercive when you could look up anyone's name on white pages and get their number, address, email, etc.? Yes. And because they're precisely analogous in every sense, that makes these ANCAP arguments projection because both involve coercion.
But that doesn't matter because we tax the rich. We got that big lump sum, and now out of the $4 trillion of assets of every billionaire in America, we have $2 trillion of new tax revenue. But that's not enough. Corporate income tax is 25% right now. Let's up that to 50%, double it, which, by the way, would cost the GDP trillions and trillions of dollars, crash the economy entirely.
What you just said is a completely erroneous lie. In a late 2020 paper titled The Economic Consequences of Major Tax Cuts for the Rich, David Hope and Julian Limberg state, this paper uses a two-stage process to estimate the causal effects of major tax cuts for the rich on economic outcomes. First, we identify instances of major reductions in tax progressivity by looking at substantial falls, greater than standard deviations, in a new comprehensive indicator of taxes on the rich that covers 18 OECD countries from 1965 to 2015. Second, we apply a non-parametric generalization on the difference in differences indicator that implements Mahalanobis matching and panel data analysis to estimate the causal effect of major tax cuts for the rich on income inequality, economic growth, and unemployment. We find that major tax cuts for the rich push up up income inequality as measured by the top 1% share of pre-tax national income, the size of the effect is substantial. On average, each major tax cut results in a rise of 0.8 percentage points in the top 1% share of pre-tax national income, holds both in the short and medium term. Turning our attention to economic performance, we find no significant effects of major tax cuts for the rich. More specifically, the trajectories of real GDP per capita and the unemployment rate are unaffected by significant reductions in taxes on the rich in both the short term and the medium term. Okay, so we know the conservatives are intentionally ignorant of reality, and that tax cuts for the rich only exacerbate income inequality and don't affect GDP, but let's look at what increased taxes on the rich would do. Take note of the fact that substantial evasion at the top of the income distribution goes undetected in random audits, and that accounting for tax evasion increases the top 1% income share in the United States. The rich aren't even paying their fair share, so would it really be theft to tax capital gains more and crack down on what loopholes they're using? According to CBPP, the literature suggests that if the alternative to raising taxes is larger deficits, then modest tax increases on high-income households would likely be more beneficial for the economy over the long run. You're wrong about everything.
So in fiscal year 2021, we extracted $284 billion from corporate income tax. So that's great. Now, in the fiscal year 2021, we have gained new tax revenue from the seizing of billionaires' assets, as well as our new corporate tax, to the tune of about $2.2 trillion in new tax revenue. Unfortunately, though, and this is a bit of a reality check moment.
Nothing about what you say aligns with reality.
In the fiscal year 2021, about $2.7 trillion of new debt. So even though we have reduced the credibility of America to a banana republic and reduced the economy to a pile of rocks and stones, we are still in the red, in the net negative for the fiscal year 2021.
Whoa. This argument is the greatest example of a cell phone because you literally just said that you didn't want billionaires' assets being stolen, but now you're saying we've incurred $20 trillion in debt. This is in spite of the fact that taxation is the fastest way to reduce the debt and create budget surpluses, as I just mentioned. You're so inundated with Fox News' contrarian boomer talking points to where you can't decide to be a third positionist or a neocon. Pick a flavor of stupidity and stick to it.
We don't even have enough money to break even.
So why don't we tax the rich more?
Ending homelessness forever?
Blame Trump, he cut taxes.
Whatever the proposal is. Like, I don't think people understand just how bad the economy is these days, or the state of American money. Like, from the year 2017 to 2019, okay, no coronavirus, no Great Recession, no nothing, okay? We were going in, on average, $1.25 trillion into debt every single year.
Why don't we tax the rich more?
The average is $1.37 trillion of debt we are going into every single year. And this, of course, has led us to the behemoth that is $28.9 trillion that we are in debt to this day. For reference, the World Bank, which is an association which does pretty much all of the statistical analysis of economics in different countries around the world.
Wait, you're citing them? I thought you hated global institutions more than anything.
A country kind of explodes. We are currently at 126% debt to GDP ratio. Any way you look at it, America is upside down in debt. And if that is
why don't we tax the rich more? Why don't we tax the rich more? Why don't we tax the rich more? Why don't we tax the rich more?
$1 trillion, according to Bernie Sanders, over 10 years. I mean, even CNN is saying that this stuff is likely to cost $60 trillion.
This is what's happening throughout this discourse. You don't understand the reason why we want to tax the rich more, and how the national debt is relevant to this. Under Carter and Clinton, for the most part, they cut social safety nets and spending, alongside implementing fiscal policies that included higher taxes. The debt and deficit went down, and you can guess what happens when Republicans get in office. When Baby's first deficit research makes him miss the entirety of the point of tax the rich, you know he doesn't know shit about real politics, and only cares about culture war outrage.
And both of these price points are on paper, so we are assuming that the government is going to spend the taxpayer dollar in a price-efficient and intelligent manner. Now,
I agree, we should stop funding Israel, defense in general, charities, no-strings corporate bailouts, and we should also raise taxes on the rich.
The source of this new tax revenue, it isn't billionaires, you know? It's much less from the billionaires than what I said. The people taking the brunt of these taxes are going to be business owners and business operations, okay?
You fucking idiot! You literally just said that most billionaire wealth was in corporate assets. Stop shape-shifting and pick a message you actually want to assert.
And we aren't talking about McDonald's by business taxes. We are talking about Jimmy's Diner down the street. I mean,
what about taxing the top 1% of business owners' capital gains means small businesses are going to be taxed more? It's an oxymoron.
Their names written off of the bill or get some sort of exemption.
Then get Congress to stop filibustering H.R. 1. Republicans are scumbags.
I know that Jeff Bezos can afford to pay $50 million to a team of 50 lawyers to find every single tax loophole in the world, but I can't, dude.
Taxing the rich would prevent that.
We have. This isn't speculated debt or unfunded liabilities. The amount of debt the U.S. owes to American citizens in unfunded liabilities is currently $158 trillion.
Introducing the FreeBot 1000. It asks the question over and over again while I sip a cup of coffee.
Why don't we tax the rich more? Why don't we tax the rich more? Why don't we tax the rich more?
Well, makes my job easier.
That is right, $158 trillion of debts that the U.S. government owes to normal people, just like you, your granddad. It's called the pension debt, that it does not have the money to pay back. $20 trillion in Social Security unfunded liabilities. $30 trillion in unfunded liabilities to Medicare and Medicaid. Here's another little fun fact. In the last 2 years, M1 and M2's money supply, or liquid money, has more than quadrupled. The amount of money, liquid money in America, has quadrupled in the last 2 years. Without knowing anything about economics other than more money printed means inflation, tell me if this graph looks normal and healthy to you. Listen.
Wait, if you expect them to know nothing about economics, how would they know what the money supply is? Well, I don't not expect him to keep his viewers willfully ignorant.
Economy, the US dollar, and honestly the world economy in general has already sunk all the way down to the bottom of the ocean, to the bottom of the Marianas Trench.
Erroneous. According to Listwire, we're the 9th most valued currency in the world. Literally every premise you put forth is easily falsifiable via a Google search.
Not only are we in unrecoverable debt, we don't have any plan to try to make an attempt.
The plan is to tax the rich.
The only attempt we ever make when it comes to the debt and the deficit is that all the congressmen get together every year and say, oh crap, guys, we blew past the budget this year. I guess, let's just write a bill saying that we can spend more money. The US dollar essentially works off of Tinkerbell's fairy magic, where it's real if you believe in it.
Again, you're telling a completely incorrect lie. The US dollar is unofficially backed by oil. What do you think the petrodollar is?
Like without considering any future unexpected massive government spending like Biden does plan, what are we going to be in terms of debt in 10 years without this Green New Deal, tax the rich, all this garbage? We're going to be over $50 trillion in debt. I just don't see too much of a difference between being $90 trillion in debt and $50 trillion in debt.
That's the debt almost reduced by half. You're an idiot.
We are using monopoly money, guys. Why do you have to take my monopoly money?
You understand nothing about currency.
I don't get it. Just have CNN release some report that said you passed the Green New Deal and it cost $1,200. You know, this is where we are, and Republicans can't be persuaded to spend $5 billion on a wall.
Because the wall is utterly useless. Surprised an ultra-conservative like him doesn't consider middle too degenerate. So folks, as it stands patently clear, Rosalroot is nothing but a grifting, outrage-generating culture war general who only cares about tapping into any conservative outrage so long as they're aligned against the left. So there's only one state in which Schmerzel can be left in. Not too dissimilarly, here's Exhibit B, the most professionally covert Nazi on the internet, Michael Knowles.
This is Representative AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who showed up to the Met Gala, one of the most preposterous, frilly, silly events of the year, where people wear lots of silly sorts of outfits and they pay upwards of $30,000 a ticket and they go hobnob with very rich people.
Whoa. Knowing where the Daily Wire gets its money, I thought you all would have loved rich people.
So AOC shows up and she gets the attention she craves and she wears a dress that says on the back of it, tax the rich, right over her derriere. You see, it's not on the front, it's on the back. Tax the rich. And she coquettishly looks over her shoulder. Ah, yes, that'll show the man. She shows up to this very fancy event and says, tax the rich, right? So everyone's focusing on the hypocrisy. This is a wealthy woman who's showing up to a lavish party with all of her extraordinarily wealthy friends, and she says, tax the rich, right? And this is hypocritical, sure. But
in what way is she implying she wants to exempt herself from taxation? Just because a rich person wants other wealthy people to get taxed more doesn't mean she doesn't want that standard applied across the board. Was this dress used as a write-off on her return in April? Is she holding the dress as a capital gain? Insurance isn't typically taxed, so is she paying for it monthly? Clearly, you have zero justification to believe that she's dodging taxes in any way, but we have every last rationale to believe that the Wilkes family is odd.
More offensive to me than the hypocrisy is the frivolity of it all. We are supposed to believe that this clown show, this bread and circuses, actually defines our politics. Oh, AOC, she'll show them. It's AOC versus the Republicans. Oh, who's gonna win? Oh, did you see what AOC tweeted? Oh, did you see what so-and-so tweeted today? In fact, it's just a performance.
She's performing? Look inward. Most every conservative talking head on this platform besides you is a grifter who hides their true beliefs and gets paid to spout a bullet point list of the same fracking billionaire programmed AI-generated drivel.
Whatever this woman does, some other silly woman showed up and said, equal rights for women, at the most establishment of the establishmentarian events of the year.
I couldn't think of anything more establishment than fracking billionaires lobbying the government and spending hundreds of millions on social media ads per year so they can keep their social hierarchy while it lasts. Now that I think about it, Knowles, maybe your calling is behind the camera instead of in front of it because you're amazing at projection.
This has very little to do with the way we're actually governed. This is a sideshow. This is a circus to keep us all entertained. So we root for AOC or we root against AOC and we all jibber jabber about the dresses. The way our government is actually run is that some bureaucrat that you've never heard of at like OSHA or at one of the alphabet agencies in Washington, D.C., just writes some regulation that you're almost certainly never going to hear about, and then that's going to have effects down the line on some business, and it's going to change the way that you interact with society. It's going to change the way the economy is run, and you're not even going to notice it because you're going to be focused on AOC's stupid dress.
Wonderful. I'd love the EPA to actually be useful for once and enact something that actually usurps gas and coal lobbying power, while your sycophants focus on mindless culture war white noise. As a matter of fact, that would be the optimal leftist strategy because the titans that extract the same liquid you use to style your hair would be one step closer to not getting anything done.
To me, that's what's so frustrating. It's so disrespectful, not that it's disrespectful that AOC is pretending to be this people's champion when she is the darling of the establishment at the Met Gala, $30,000 a ticket. But it's more offensive the lack of respect that these people in general have for the voters, for the American people, who are being denied our political rights, who are being deprived of our way of life, who can't even have faith in the integrity of our elections.
There are two equally absurd and erroneous statements I want to tackle there. First, according to Pew, most Americans actually support taxing the rich, so you've got it reversed in saying that politicians have contempt for voters. Speaking of which, you constantly keep on revering Manchin and Sinema despite knowing how badly their constituents wanted them out. Contempt for voters. Second, the integrity of our elections is doubted on the right because they were coping at the fact that Trump got his ass handed to him, and that's a lot of ass to handle, even when they had less ground to stand on than the Democrats when they absurdly exaggerated the Russiagate conspiracy. But speaking the integrity of our elections, the right is once again projecting because members of the GOP have been subpoenaed by the January 6th panel because there's evidence reifying a scheme where fraudulent electors in state electoral colleges have fabricated their statuses as electors. Imagine having such unpopular political views to where you have to make up presidential votes to get your guy in and you still end up losing. I couldn't think of a more repugnant disregard for the principles of democracy.
Strange thing, not strange if you've been paying attention, about the Met Gala is that none of the people were wearing masks. AOC wasn't wearing a mask. Some other lady, I don't know a lot of these rich, fancy New York society types, a lot of famous politicians and actors and actresses there. None of them were wearing masks. Actually, the only people who were wearing masks were the help. It was the staff. All the staff that were waiting on the celebrities hand and foot, they had to wear masks to keep their filth away from the good, clean, beautiful, famous people, the ruling class. They don't want to get those nasty, icky germs from the yucky help.
I agree. Such behavior is absurd and hypocritical, and they should be castigated for the constituency of their actions, or lack thereof. But I could flip this around and ask you why you suddenly care about mask mandates in enclosed spaces where almost nobody was distanced, and why do you now care about the working class having their individuality undermined? You're just as inconsistent as they are.
Icky germs from the yucky help. So the help wears the masks. The anointed ones don't have to wear the masks, even though we're living. Is it still the Delta that's surging allegedly, or is it the Lambda now, or is it the Sigma? What is it? Is it it's the 15th day to slow the spread, or it's the 570th day to? I don't quite remember. All I know is you filthy pigs need to keep your masks on to keep your yucky breath and germs away from us beautiful anointed people. Tax the rich. We're going to show them power to the people. What a joke. What a joke. What a bunch of clowns. I mean, they actually dressed up like clowns. And then they put on a big circus. And by the way, we fell for it. We're all talking about it. We sort of have to talk about it. But if I must talk about it, I do not want to talk about it from the shallow perspective that the ruling class wants us to. I at least want to lift back that curtain. I think so much of the past 4 or 5 years has been about pulling back that curtain.
And I love pulling back the curtain of billionaires trying to exasperate wealth inequality by disguising it as fiscal liberty. This idiot is hypocritical in every sense and applies the very ethics he detests when it's convenient for him. That means there's only one solution for jackasses like this. Well, there you have it, folks. I wouldn't call these two Dumb and Dumber, but simply dumb and dumb because it's technologically impossible for scientists to observe any semblance of intelligence in the minds of these brainlets in an attempt to compare the capacity of these two. One just wants to accumulate ad revenue because for him, politics are an aesthetic, and playing into the misdirected outrage culture that has plagued conservatism since its existence is a good way to grift to an audience, even though you live by none of what you say, on top of having a room temperature Celsius brain cell count. The other is just deranged because there has to be a screw or two loose for him to actually believe in this shit. Only more evidence to bolster the mental health budget. These idiots are compulsive liars and will lie, doublespeak, obfuscate, and prevaricate in any attempt to sway you away from the truth. Don't listen to these fuckers.